On the night of April 13 to 14, Iran struck Israel in response to the Israeli strike on April 1st against the consular section of the Iranian embassy in Syria. The military operation was named True Promise and, as Iran emphasized, was conducted by Article 51 of the UN Charter, which grants the right to self-defense in the event of armed attack. It was clear from the beginning that Iran would be forced to take such action. Although the Iranian strategy requires avoiding open war against Israel and the United States, if Israeli strikes on Iranian military advisors somewhere in Syrian territory, or even sabotage and killings on Iranian territory itself, were understood by all as part of the ongoing secret war between Iran and Israel's intelligence service over the years, a direct military strike on the Iranian diplomatic representation went beyond these boundaries and seemed like an attempt to change the established unwritten rules. Israel's actions required some direct, adequate military response from Iran. Otherwise, it would be perceived by all as the extreme weakness of the Iranian leadership, both to enemies and allies and to its own population. The most symmetric Iranian response could have been a strike on some Israeli embassy or consulate, but this threatened serious deterioration of relations with the countries where these Israeli diplomatic representations are located, as well as their allies. All these considerations determined the scale and goals of the Iranian Operation True Promise, constraining it within stringent limits. That is, a direct strike had to be delivered on individual military targets in Israeli territory, simultaneously sufficiently massive, taking into account the need to break through Israel's modern layered air defense and missile defense system, while strictly limited to minimize the threat of collateral casualties among the civilian population and try to avoid the situation spiraling into uncontrolled escalation. Thus, the Chief of Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, General Mohammad Bagheri, stated that the main targets of the attack were the Israeli Intelligence Center near Syria and the Israeli Air Force Base Nevatim in the south of the country, the aircraft from which, according to Iranian data, participated in the strike on the Iranian diplomatic representation in Damascus on April 1. Possibly another target was the Ramon Air Base, also in the south in the Negev Desert. The composition of forces should have been allocated from approximate calculations of what the Iranian military considered minimally sufficient to penetrate Israeli air defense and missile defense. It should be understood, however, that all these calculations were purely theoretical, and there was no experience of such a strike anywhere in the world. The Iranian operation marked the first mass use of medium-range ballistic missiles in armed conflicts, as well as the first mass use of anti-ballistic missile ABM systems to intercept them. While isolated incidents of both had occurred before, and such as in January 2022, when the THAAD ABM system in the UAE intercepted a medium-range ballistic missile launched by the Houthis from Yemen, the recent months had seen only sporadic interceptions of individual ballistic missiles and drones launched from Yemen and by Israeli air defense systems like the Iron Dome and David's Sling. This operation, however, was the first of its scale and intensity. Iran informed neighboring countries of its impending attack on Israel 3 days before it began. Bases of the aerospace forces of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps in western and central parts of Iran, in the provinces of Kermanshah, Khuzestan, East Azerbaijan, Isfahan, Fars, Tehran, and possibly others, were involved in the coordinated attack. Some missiles and drones were launched by Iranian allies, Shiite militias from Iraq, and the Ansar Allah Houthi government from Yemen. According to American data, there were also launches from Syria, likely by Iraqi militias stationed there, but the majority were launched from within Iran itself. Notably, there were no attacks from Hezbollah's armed wing in Lebanon, which only shelled Israeli positions in the occupied Golan Heights with rocket artillery. This tactic has become routine in recent months. Hezbollah still adheres to a strategy of limited military action against Israel in border areas, and Iran sees no need to change this for now. The attack began with the launch of Shahed 131 and Shahed 136 kamikaze drones, which take the longest time to reach Israel. They were launched in 2 to 3 waves, primarily from Kermanshah and Khuzestan. Shortly after, Winged missiles from the Paver family were launched in the most budgetary variant. The last to be launched were medium-range ballistic missiles. Videos released by Iran and debris from spent missile parks indicate the use of the Emad Gard, likely with a cluster warhead, K-bar Shekhan, and possibly Desvor and Resman missiles. All of these drones, winged missiles, and ballistic missiles have already been exported or offered for export, suggesting that Iran did not want to reveal the capabilities of its most powerful and best missiles. There is currently no data from the Iranian side on the scale of the attack. According to Israeli estimates, approximately 170 drones, over 30 winged missiles, and over 120 ballistic missiles were launched. American estimates suggest over 100 medium-range ballistic missiles, over 30 winged missiles, and 151 drones were used. American forces worked over Iraq to intercept drones and winged missiles, both with their air force and with anti-aircraft complexes stationed at their military bases in Iraq. Jordanian and French-British air forces also joined in intercepting drones and winged missiles over Syria and Jordan. Israel's layered air defense system, one of the densest and most modern in the world, intercepted many of the ballistic missiles and drones, winged missiles, that approached its territory. Some ballistic missiles did breach the defenses, causing limited damage to Israeli air bases, according to Israeli sources, while American sources claim that 9 Iranian missiles struck 2 Israeli air bases. Despite interceptions, the scale of the attack demonstrates Iran's readiness to reinforce its deterrence capabilities through direct military force and gain propaganda points amidst the Gaza conflict. Iran's chief of staff, General Salami, stated that they have decided to create a new equation in their relations with Israel and will directly respond from Iran to any attack against Iranian citizens, interests, etc. This statement suggests Iran's readiness to escalate the conflict further if Israel continues its attacks, despite US advice against doing so. Iran is prepared for both scenarios, threatening to deliver much more powerful strikes if attacked by Israel. However, Israel's actions and whether they will strike targets in Iran, despite US advice against it, remains to be seen. Both Iran's arsenal of missiles and drones and the power of the Israeli Air Force and Israeli missiles should not be underestimated in such a scenario. From a military perspective, both sides have gained experience that would otherwise be impossible to obtain. Iran conducted reconnaissance through combat and observed what could realistically be achieved in repelling a combined air defense and air force attack by Israel, operating at maximum capacity with direct military assistance from US, UK, and French forces, as well as neighbouring Jordan. This information is invaluable for planning future operations, as it allows for calculations of the necessary force required to breach Israeli air defense and missile defense based on real data. In turn, Israel was able to fully confirm the effectiveness of its missile defense systems and the coordination of all its air force and air defense forces. Now, Israel can also rely on practical data in this regard, even though Iran's strike may not have been at its maximum potential. Now, do you think direct attack on each other's soil will be a new way of fighting in between Iran and Israel in the future? Let us know in the comments. We discuss such interesting subjects every day. Please subscribe to the channel and share and like the videos.